Just got the notification that the event is starting.
Fantastic.
Alright.
This is one of our most popular classes at the real estate school, the NAR Code of Ethics. Let's check out that YouTube link, see if people are trickling in.
Yep, we're all live and stuff, so good whenever.
All right, cool. Welcome, guys. We're going to go over the NAR Code of Ethics. I'm with Aaron, Luca, and Ryan. Aaron's going to be narrating this with me and going over all this stuff, giving out examples from his incredible experience of doing 50-plus transactions a year. And if you guys need a copy of the NAR Code of Ethics, which I'm sharing on the screen right now so everyone can see it, all you got to do is Google it. Just Google NAR Code of Ethics 2021 or 2020, whatever. I think the most recent one you can find now is 2021. And you'll see one pop right up. That's how I got mine. So it's very easy to get. This code right here is what makes real estate laws. So basically, the real estate laws came out. If you guys don't know the history of the Code of Ethics, at least here in New York, I'm sure this is similar in other states. The state makes the laws for realtors, and then one day the realtors decided to create the NAR Code of Ethics, and the state said, "Oh wow, this Code of Ethics is so much more comprehensive," that the state adopted the code and made these codes part of their laws. So literally this code came out after the laws were created, and then they took the code and made a bunch of pieces of the code into law because it was so much more comprehensive. And if you know the code, if you know the NAR Code of Ethics, you know the rules to the game. And that's what makes you a top player. That's what makes you invincible. That's what makes you end up in those scenarios. You know when you have those scenarios where you like make an offer or you call to get an appointment or you like whatever it might be, you got something going on and another agent is getting in your way? Well, if you know the NAR Code of Ethics, you can handle everybody because we're all bound to this code. And I promise you that a good 85% of the people that you meet out there don't know what's on here. And that's part of the problem. So, without any further ado, Aaron, you with me?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Say hello. Tell everyone a little about yourself.
Hey, everyone. So my name's Aaron. If, for those of you who don't know me, I'm a real estate agent in Queens, New York. I'm practicing real estate now. This is my 4th year. And I can tell you I've been through a lot in regards to what agents do and how they practice. And just always here trying to do the right thing. And that's what today's class is about. So thanks, Andrew, for bringing me in.
Of course. So let's just jump into it. We're going to start here with Article 1. And guys, if you have questions, feel free to type them in the comments section. I feel like I have an eyelash. I keep getting something in my eye.
Good luck.
I have, if you have questions, type them in the comments section. Luca's going to read them out loud. And he'll interrupt me if you got anything. And let's just jump in. So, Article 1. Now, this goes over duties to clients and customers. By the way, I don't know how far we're going to get down. We're just going to do an hour, and we'll see how much we get done. So, Article 1. When representing a buyer, seller, landlord, tenant, or other client as an agent, realtors pledge themselves to protect and promote the interests of their client. This obligation to the client is primary, but it does not relieve realtors of their obligation to treat all parties honestly. When serving a buyer, seller, landlord, tenant, or other party in a non-agency capacity, realtors remain obligated to treat all parties honestly. All right, so that's the general scope of Article 1, and now we're going to get into the actual standards of practice. So, 1-1. Realtors, when acting as principals in a real estate transaction, remain obligated by the duties imposed by the Code of Ethics. So very simple. Whenever you're representing somebody, you're obligated by this code. 1-2. The duties imposed by the Code of Ethics encompass all real estate related activities, transactions whether conducted in person, electronically, or through any other means. The duties of the Code of Ethics the Code of Ethics imposes are applicable whether realtors are acting as agents or in legally recognized non-agency capacities, except that any duty imposed exclusively on agents by law or regulation shall not be imposed by this Code of Ethics on realtors acting in non-agency capacities. So I understand that whole paragraph definitely was a lot to chew off. What do you think, Aaron?
Definitely a lot, but I think the best way to do this is to give some real life examples.
Right.
I represented a seller recently, and we listed this property in Jamaica, Queens for $615,000, and we ended up getting multiple offers, and one of those offers was a lower offer from a buyer without an agent. And now we're getting, we have two offers. One of them is a lower offer without an agent representing them, and of course, agents know that without an agent, of course, you would make more commission. And on the flip side, there was a higher offer. I'm talking about significantly higher, like $20,000 higher with an agent. So, of course, my job is to present all the offers. And if you're doing this right and you're representing the seller right, of course, you're going to advise them to take the higher offer, even if it means you make less in commission. So that's an example that I recently had as of yesterday that I think is a great example.
Right. Basically, what standard of practice, hold on, before you even read this out, Aaron, could you send Jason a link to YouTube? He's asking for one, so he wants to get on here.
Yes, absolutely.
So basically in paragraph 1-2, it's telling you that you're bound to the Code of Ethics no matter what the situation, whether it's electronically or in person or any other means. It doesn't matter. Over the phone, whatever situation you're dealing with a person, you're required to be honest and fair to all parties. So there's never a situation where you're not bound by this code. So let's move on. It says, as used in the Code of Ethics, client means person or entity with whom the realtor or realtors firm has an agency or legally recognized non-agency relationship. What that means right here is a person becomes a client when they sign a contract with you. That client can be a buyer or a seller. A seller usually signs a seller's exclusive right to sell contract, or a buyer might sell a buyer agency representation contract. Whenever they sign and they're basically hiring you, whether they're exclusive or not exclusive, that means they become a client. Anyone else is a customer. So now it's going to break down customer. Customer means party to a real estate transaction who receives information, services, or benefits, but has no contractual relationship with the realtor or the realtor's firm. It's pretty clear, right?
Absolutely.
Prospect. Prospect means a purchaser, seller, tenant, or landlord who is not subject to a representation relationship with the realtor or realtor's firm. So prospect is someone that you're basically meeting for the first time, or you're trying to get them to come work for you. But that's the term that you're going to be using. That's the legal term by the code, is that someone that you're trying to become in a relationship with, but they're not represented by anybody right now. Agent means a real estate licensee. That includes both brokers and salesperson, acting in an agency relationship as defined by state law or regulation. So an agent is either a broker or a salesperson acting in relationship for another. So that means you're representing somebody. And finally, it says broker means a real estate licensee, including brokers and salespersons acting as agents or in a legally recognized non-agent capacity. So they're even saying, even if you use the term broker, is referring to both of you. Now, it's bringing up these terms specifically because these terms are in our contracts. Your local MLS board usually provides you with standardized contracts, so you should have listing agreements and buyer representation agreements, and it uses the terminology outlined in the Code of Ethics. So in the code, they're going to define what they mean when they say this verbiage. Let's move to 1-3. Realtors, in attempt to secure a listing, shall not deliberately mislead the owner as to the market value. Now, how many times have we all come across that guy that promises way more for the listing than what's really going to happen? Did you know that he's violating Article 1-3? Aaron, you got any examples of this?
I'm the guy.
I do. I recently lost a listing to someone. I was going to get a listing in the Bronx. and I knew that I was pricing the home right and that it was going to sell. If we priced it this way at market, it was going to sell for at or over asking price. And a listing agent came in and basically told the seller what they wanted to hear. And of course, he called me back and said, "Listen, I'm sorry, but since we're listing it at this price, I think we're going to go with this agent." And I said, "Okay, no problem. Listen, I'd rather, be honest with you than come out of here with an overpriced listing." And that's what happened. And normally that's what you got to do when you're honest and you do the right thing ethically.
If you guys stick by the code, you're going to be in business a long time. You're going to make plenty of money, and you're going to have more wins than losses. So Aaron's got a great example there of like, look, you know what? I'm going to keep my integrity high, be honest with the person, and not just tell them what they want to hear. That other person, if let's say that guy promises the seller, hey, I'm going to get you $50,000 more, and it's obviously not true, that seller could actually go after this realtor, because even in state law, at least here in New York, we are required to know the true market value. That's part of your duties as a licensee. And I would be willing to bet that in other states, you have a similar requirement, because your duty as a licensee is to be the expert. And now if you promise something you can't deliver, you're basically lying. You're going out being deceptive. And if that seller decides to sue the agent, who knows what could happen. And I promise you it's not going to go well, especially because it's in violation of the code. Now, let's say they don't want to sue, and that seller just wants to report the agent to his local board. Right off the bat, this would be an ethics violation because it's violating the code of ethics. Those fines usually start at $7,500 per occurrence. So you have penalties to pay if you get caught lying. It might be, now the fines might be vary from state to state. I don't know what the fines are in different locations, but there's penalties to pay, and that's the point I'm trying to highlight. So don't lie to your customer. Tell them the true market value. You'll be better off in the long run. So we got standard of practice 1-4. Realtors, when seeking to become a buyer/tenant representative, shall not mislead buyers or tenants as to savings or other benefits that might be realized through the use of the realtor's services. Aaron, you got an example?
Sorry, you cut out there. The last example?
So it says, realtors, when seeking a buyer or tenant representative, right? So when you're going to represent a buyer or tenant, you cannot mislead that client as to savings or other benefits that might be realized if they use your services.
Just an example. Even before we do any of that, what I normally do is I hop on a buyer consultation call, and I break this down. Are you referring to customer versus client?
No. So what it says here is like if you can't think of one, I got some. So like it says when a realtor is seeking a buyer or tenant. So let's say we're going to go find a buyer, or we're going to represent tenants, and we're going to bring these guys to properties or listings. We cannot promise that client or customer some sort of benefit or savings that that person will gain from working with us. So I'll give you a perfect example. If we found a buyer, what's that?
The bribe, you're saying.
Right. So if we tell a buyer, let's say like, hey, if you work with me, I'm going to save you $10,000 off this listing, or off any listings. I'll probably get you about 15 to 20 grand off. You don't know that. You can't make that possible. That's not real. That every situation is different. That would be the example of offering a savings or some other benefit that might be realized. Or, this might be possible if you work with me.
Yeah, I just an example of that. I do know people that have tried to do that in the past, but like on the lending side, that try to say, I'll give you this amount of money back if you list with, or we'll give you a credit back at closing. But this is not something that really can be done.
Right.
No. But
any
other than
questions?
that, I don't really have many examples of that besides that one.
That's good. I don't want you to have
And
too many
I don't
because
work with those type of people. I don't want to work with those type of people.
yeah, I was just about to say Aaron's up hanging out with ethical people, so I'm glad you don't have too many.
I was like, you threw me off guard. I'm trying to think of an example, but I don't, because I try to avoid that.
Yeah, but if you don't have one, just tell me. It's fine. It's not a big deal. I might have some examples too. Luca, we got any questions popping up in there?
Good to go for now, buddy.
All right, so let's move on. Standard practice 1-5. Realtors may represent seller or landlord and buyer/tenant in the same transaction only after full disclosure to and with informed consent of both parties.
Dual agency, baby.
Dual agency. Right. And it has to be informed consent in writing. Very simple. Standard practice 1-6, realtors shall submit offers and counter offers objectively and as quickly as possible. So before I even talk about this one, I want to pull something up so everyone understands what we're talking about. I want to define the word objectively, because not everyone knows. Objectively means in a way that is not influenced by personal feelings or opinions. Now think about that. How many times do we run into a scenario where we have to submit an offer to our sellers or counter offers, whatever, and they want your opinion on things? They ask you like, oh, what do you think? How do you feel about this one? Blah, 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 blah. Did you know that was violation of standard of practice 1-6? Did you know that, Aaron?
Did not, but I don't do that anyway.
I'm not gonna lie to you, I've done it. I've had plenty of sellers ask me my opinion, and
Oh no, sellers have asked me for opinions, and I just say like, listen, we're here to present you all the options, and we'll tell you the terms and we'll try to rank them, but we can't really tell you what to pick. Just because if something happens later that doesn't go to your liking, you're gonna blame us.
Right. Usually what I end up doing is I say, look, here's all the facts. Okay? This offer is XYZ. It has these possibilities after. So I was like, here's the possibilities ABC. Here's the next offer. It offers XYZ. If we take this one, these possibilities ABC, blah, blah, blah. Everything's speculation, right? But you can't put your opinions into things. And that usually is one of the most commonly violated rule in this business, is that we find people. I'll give you a perfect example. Perfect example. And any lenders on this, they're going to know what I'm talking about. When you have a buyer that's putting down, say 0 or 3.2 or 3.5%, 3.25, whatever, 3.75. When you have a buyers that are doing lower down payments, trying to do the maximum financing, realtors who are not savvy with financing and don't understand how the lending side of the industry works usually interject with their feelings on the offer because they worry, I don't know, what if it doesn't appraise? Can they pay the money? I don't know. Are they going to qualify for that much money? Those are all feelings and opinions. And when you do that, you're in violation of 1-6. The way the state looks at it, at least here in New York, and this is probably similar in other states, but the way the state looks at it is you are the realtor, so you're required to market the property, know true market value, present offers, and do everything objectively without feelings, right? Your job is not to qualify buyers. Qualifying a buyer comes from the lender. If they have a pre-approval, the state considers that person qualified because your job is not to go through their assets, income, debt, and ability to repay. That's what they have a pre-approval for. News, right? Any examples you could think of, Aaron?
Well, I do get a lot of, a ton of offers, and a lot of the offers that I get, a lot of buyer's agents, they try to say, hey, listen, we'll use your lender if you accept our offer, or try to steer them in a different direction, if that's what you mean. From that case, I just say, like, listen, as long as they're qualified, and I see their pre-approval letter and I speak to their lender and their income is verified, we'll go ahead and accept their offer as long as it comes in at the best terms and the best price, according to what the seller wants.
That's the smart thing to do.
I try to stay objective with it because I don't want to decide for them, and then, for example, something happens and then they blame it on us, and then we can lose our license for that.
Yeah, totally. Or you can get sued for money's lost. Which
I'd rather not do. I mean, although our company has insurance, you don't want to go down that route.
Yeah, it's no guarantee everything's going to be covered. All right. You want to grab 1-7 or some of them? You want to read some?
1-7. I got it here. It's a little small, though, here. When acting as listing brokers, realtors shall continue to submit to the seller, landlord, all offers and counter-offers on closing or execution of a lease unless the seller/landlord has waived this obligation in writing.
Hold on. Stop right there. How many people did not know that? I guarantee you, a bunch of people did not know that you're still required to present offers whether you're under a contract or not. It's all the way up until closing. Go ahead,
Great info.
Keep going.
News to me, man.
That's news. Upon the written request of a cooperating broker who submits an offer to the listing broker shall provide, as soon as practical, a written affirmation to the cooperating broker stating that the offer has been submitted to the seller/landlord, or written notification that the seller/landlord has waived the obligation to have the offer presented.
There you go. A lot of people think that once the property's under contract, they're like, oh, we can't go see it anymore. We can't go make offers. And it's just not true. You can even request access, and if the seller is willing to give it to you, that realtor's still required to let you in. It's just
a lot of realtors are kind of saying my job is done, and they get a little bit lazy, but really they have to continue. And it's been tough, to get, just even if they say sorry, accepted an offer. It's basically their way of saying I'm lazy.
Most of the time, I've taught this class, I think 9 or 10 times now over the last 4 years, and every time I go through this, whether they're a top producer or a new agent, everyone has things that they were like, I didn't know that. Because the problem we have in this industry is we don't have great education. I'm just going to say it, okay? Because just because someone's a good broker doesn't make them a good teacher. Right? They can be good at doing deals. They can be good at doing real estate. Maybe they're a good listing agent or a good buyer's agent, whatever. That doesn't mean that they can teach another person. And when it comes to the requirements to getting a real estate license, it's really not that hard. I mean, some states are more strict than others. In New York, it's literally a 2-week crash course in law. I know California has a little more stricter standards. But, it's not like going for a college degree where you require some years of study. So the barrier to entry is very low. Thus, we end up in situations like this where top producers and new agents don't even know that they're breaking the rules. Is someone going to say something? All right. I have used this code. I hear someone cutting in now.
Yeah, sorry, that's me. The mic's a little cooked. Yeah, it's just disjointed in the nature. Every single company is going to be different, right?
Totally.
So the experience, even if two people are at the same level in their careers, the experiences are vastly, vastly different,
True. I use this code many, many, many times, and I catch other people in violation constantly. I don't whip it out like a weapon and try to stab everyone. But when someone is not playing nice, or they're making it difficult, or whatever it is, they're just not openly communicating, I am not going to lose a sale for you. You can love me because I'm really nice in the beginning, and you can hate my guts because I'm ruthless when it comes time to make my money. It doesn't matter to me. I don't work for you. But if you know these codes, you know these rules, you can become that realtor that gets what they need, gets what they want every time. Your local real estate board has a system in place that holds agents accountable to this code. And there are heavy penalties when they're violated. So that's why we spend so much time teaching this class. This is our #1 class that people sign up for regularly. We're going to teach this to the Women's Council of Long Island at the end of this month. Because there's so many rules in here that can protect you as a realtor. Take the time, go through, and read this. Let's keep going. Standard practice.
Absolutely.
You want to continue? Finish what you started, Aaron.
Yeah, let me finish it. Yeah, so realtors shall not be obligated to continue to market the property after an offer has been accepted by the seller/landlord. Shall recommend that seller/landlord obtain the advice of legal counsel prior to acceptance of a subsequent offer, except when there is acceptance. When the acceptance is contingent on the termination of the pre-existing purchase, contract, or lease.
So you don't have to market it, but you do have to present all offers that come in. And if showing requests are requested and the seller says, yeah, show it, then you have to show it.
Yeah, and you have to take it, temporary off market as soon as the offer is accepted normally.
Yeah.
That's the goal.
At least in our market, yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Get the next one, Wait.
Go for it.
Realtors acting as agents or brokers of buyers/tenants shall submit to buyers/tenants all offers and counter offers until acceptance, but have no obligation to continue to show properties to their clients after an offer has been accepted unless otherwise agreed in writing.
Right. So if the seller gives it to you in writing, you don't have to show it. But if the seller wants you to show it, you have to show it. Keep going.
Normally, they write something like some sort of letter that you upload on the MLS saying, we accepted this offer, we're not showing anymore.
Yeah. Look, I mean, standard practice here, I mean, not standard practice, that's standard practice on the screen. What usually ends up happening here, at least on Long Island, is when it goes on the contract, a lot of agents don't want to go to it because the chances of it not closing is pretty slim. You know, things tend to close. But there are times where you want to get into something. That seller, let's say I call a listing that's under contract, and I say, I want to get in there. They're going to tell me it's under contract. Well, I'm going to ask them, do you have in writing from the seller not to show it? If they don't have that, then they have to go get it. And chances are, if your seller feels that way, you'll get it. But there will be some sellers out there that say, show it anyway. And that's why you need to know what's in here. Keep going.
That's where we at. We're at
Realtors acting as agents or brokers, right here.
Can you point? Sorry, you scrolled. I missed something.
Realtors acting as agents or brokers of buyers/tenants shall recommend that the buyer...
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I finished that paragraph already.
Right.
Realtors acting as agents or brokers of buyers/tenants shall recommend the buyers/tenants obtain the advice of legal counsel if there is a question as to whether a pre-existing contract has been terminated.
Right. So if they want to, talk to the lawyer if their deal is off. Don't advise them on legal matters.
Don't be. There's a lot of agents that I've worked with that also try to be the lawyer, just do that.
It'll be in here too. Go ahead.
All right. We're gonna read 1.9.
Yeah.
Okay. The obligation of realtors to preserve confidential information as defined by state law, provided by their clients in the course of any agency relationship or non-agency relationship recognized by law, continues after termination of agency relationships or any non-agency relationship recognized by law.
So all the confidential information that you learned from your customer, you're still required to keep it confidential even at the termination of your relationship, whether it's exclusive agency or not.
And I've just an example. I had a client that ended up not buying a property last year, and I had some information that was, only information that she said not to share. And then she came back to buy again, and we used that information to help her get something the second time around. So you never know when these clients are going to come back to you and entrust in you to get something else.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Realtors shall not knowingly, during or following the termination of professional relationship with clients, reveal confidential information of clients, use confidential information of clients to the disadvantage of client, use confidential information of clients for the realtor's advantage or the advantage of third parties, unless consent is given, realtors are required by court order, it is the intention of the client to commit a crime. So if someone was going to commit a crime, then yes, you can violate your confidentiality, you can report it. Or if it's necessary to defend a realtor or realtor's employees or associates against an accusation of wrongful conduct. So if you're being accused of doing something you should not have done, but you know it's not true, you could then reveal confidential information to defend yourself. All right, so standard practice.
I don't have an example of that.
I don't have examples of that either, thank God. Standard practice 1-10, realtors shall consistent with terms and conditions of the real estate licensure and the property management agreement, competently manage the property of clients with due regard for the rights, safety, and health of tenants and others lawfully on the premises. Pretty self-explanatory. 1-11, realtors who are employed to maintain or manage a client's property shall exercise due diligence and make reasonable efforts to protect it against reasonably foreseeable contingencies and losses. I'll give you an example of that. My property manager for the buildings that I own in Pennsylvania, he has a checklist that he goes, and every 3 months he goes to the property. I mean, he goes there more often than that, but every 3 months specifically for the checklist, he goes down the list and checks things. Checks the boiler, checks the roof, checks all these things and just makes sure everything's okay, everything's in working order. That's taking reasonable due diligence and efforts to protect against unforeseen protect against foreseeable contingencies. So like if you foresee that, look, the roof's getting old or the boiler's starting to leak or whatever it is, you're making these efforts to check that off. So that's what 1-11 is about. 1-12, when entering into a listing contracts, realtors must advise sellers and landlords of the realtor's company policy regarding cooperation and the amount of compensation that will be offered to sub-agents, buyers/tenant agents, or brokers acting in legal recognition non-agency capacities. So number one is basically saying that we have to disclose what commissions are we sharing. What were you going to say?
I was going to say, normally, at the listing appointment, I do break that down, right? Let's say the total commission is 5%, right? Where's that going? Well, 2% goes to a buyer's agent. This percent goes towards our broker, and this percent goes towards us. And just to keep in mind that if a buyer comes directly, we will indeed keep all of that percentage, of course, and they would agree on that.
Right. The fact that buyers/tenant agents or brokers, even if compensated by listing brokers, or by sellers/landlords, may represent the interest of buyers and tenants. So basically they want you to disclose that even though we're sharing the commission, that other person may represent the interest of another person. Any potential for listing brokers to act as disclosed dual agents/buyers, buyer-tenant agents. So again, they want you to notify them of the possibility that you might end up as a dual agent. By the way, dual agency, in at least here where I live, is a choice. You can be a seller's or buyer's representative exclusively, or you can let them know that I might end up as a dual agent, because we have what's called dual agent with designated sales associates, which means if they end up in a dual agent scenario, we could actually assign another person in representation of another, so you can still keep your relationship strong with your client, and that person will represent the other, and that can still be within one brokerage. So that's the way we do it here in New York. It might not happen in other states, and just keep in mind that this is a nationwide document. So some things you might hear it and be like, I never heard of that. Well, maybe it's not practiced in your area, but most of this is. All right, 1-13. When entering into buyer/tenant agreements, realtors must advise potential clients of 1, the realtor's company policies and procedures regarding cooperation. 2, the amount of compensation to be paid by the client, so what they're going to be charging as commission. 3, the potential for additional or offsetting compensation from other brokers, from the seller or landlord, or from other parties. So if you run into a scenario where the buyer is offering to cover some of the commission, you might want to disclose that's a possibility that this could happen, as long as the seller is aware and they agree. I don't see why they would say not to. Or buyers, you might want to tell the buyer, this is about relationship with the buyer. So you could tell them the seller is going to pay my commission. Yeah, really simple, right? Very straightforward. The more you disclose, the better. 4, any potential for buyer/tenant representative to act as disclosed dual agents, right? Listing agents, sub-agents, landlord agents. And 5, the possibility that sellers or seller's representative may not treat the existence, terms, or conditions of offers as confidential unless confidentiality is required by law, regulation, or any other confidentiality agreement between the parties. So we're telling that buyer that, look, if we disclose something to the seller, they may not keep it as confidential, because their agency relationship is not to protect you, it's to their client, unless they're required by law to do so. Like something, I can't think of an example. There might be like I don't know, for whatever reason you want to give them protected health information. Yeah, then they'd still be required not to share your protected health information. But there could be something that's protected and they won't have to disclose it. But whatever you tell them, they're going to use. Aaron, you want to finish?
Yes, you want me to get to 114 here?
Yeah, keep going.
Fees for preparing appraisals or other valuations shall not be contingent upon the amount of the appraisal or valuation.
Pretty straightforward.
I'll move on from there. Actually, scroll up a little bit because your picture's blocking.
Good.
It has not moved yet. I think it's a little delayed. Yeah, okay, we're good.
Yeah.
Realtors, in response to inquiries from buyers or cooperating brokers, shall, with the seller's approval, disclose the existence of offers on the property Disclosure is authorized. And here, realtors shall also disclose, if asked, whether offers were obtained by the listing licensee, the licensee in the listing firm, or by a cooperating broker.
Right. So what 115 is saying, if buyers or cooperating agents ask, well, first of all, they say if you have the seller's approval and they ask, do you have other offers? You can let them know. If you don't have the seller's approval, you should not be letting them know. So that's the first thing. Second part says, where disclosure is authorized, realtors shall also disclose, if asked, whether offers are obtained by the listing agent, another person in the listing agent's firm, or a cooperating broker. So you could ask, is it your buyer? Or does it come from another brokerage? Or is it someone in your brokerage? Those are all authorized to be asked. So keep that in mind.
Awesome. Realtors shall not access or use or permit or enable others to access or use listed or managed a property on terms or conditions other than those authorized by the owner or seller.
Pretty straightforward, right? If they tell you this is how I want you to show my property, you got to follow their rules. All right, Article 2. We just finished Article 1. Anybody have questions about something?
There's stream delay, so guys, if you have any questions at any point or anything, or you want to share a real life example of something that you went through, feel free to just pop them into the YouTube chat, and you guys know I have no problem interrupting Andrew. It's kind of my speciality.
Feel free to just drop questions if they come up.
Yeah, I'm watching for you, bro. You're good to move on.
All right, Article 2. This is a good one. Realtors shall avoid exaggeration, misrepresentation, or concealment of pertinent facts related to the property or the transaction. So hold on, before I keep reading, we got to give everyone another word. Pertinent. Okay? Relevant or applicable to the particular matter. Apposite, right? So it's relevant or applicable to the transaction, to the listing, to the sale, right? So realtors shall avoid exaggeration, misrepresenting, or concealment of relevant facts related to the property or the transaction. Realtors shall not, however, be obligated to discover latent defects in the property, to advise on matters outside of the scope of the real estate licensee, or to disclose facts which are confidential under the scope of the agency or non-agency relationship as defined by state law. So what it's saying here in Article 2 is you can't lie, you can't cheat, you can't cover things up, and if you get caught, you're going to get screwed on that. It also says, though, that you are not obligated to know things that are beyond the scope of what a licensee would know. So let's give you an example of that. It doesn't say that you are required to know that boiler is not functioning correctly because you saw something on it, or you're not required to know that there's a defect in the bathroom or in the roof. You're not required to know if the balcony is not installed properly or the deck is not installed. Like, some people think that they're supposed to attach the deck to the house, and it's just not true. You're not supposed to attach the deck to the house. You're not supposed to know that. Okay? It's not required of your duties as a licensee. But when you do know something, you have to disclose it. So you don't have to go beyond the relationship or the duties of a realtor. So standard practice 1-2, realtors shall only be obligated to discover and disclose adverse factors reasonably apparent to someone with expertise in those areas required by their real estate licensing authority. Article 2 does not impose on realtors the obligation of expertise in other professions or technical disciplines. So literally 2-1 just highlighted what I just described. You're not required to know things that are outside the scope of being a realtor. You're not required to become a technical specialist or other professions. Aaron, you got any examples of when that popped up in your career?
Yeah. I've had a FaceTime showing one time. I had a listing, and I had a buyer's agent come and do a FaceTime Actually, it wasn't the showing; it was the inspection. But the inspector ran late, so the agent decided to start pointing out some things like this needs to be fixed, that needs to be fixed. The roof is this amount of years old. I'm like, are you sure? Of course, that kind of spooked out my seller. I don't think the deal ended up happening just because my seller got a little spooked and the buyer started bringing up all these items. The inspector didn't even check yet. So that's my story.
Well, according to the article, you're not required to know those things, so it's okay.
Oh.
You know, if the seller told you they know about this fact, they know about the fact the roof is old and it's leaking, then you would have to disclose that because you know about it at that
They
point.
didn't know, and it was the agent that was pointing this out, doing the inspector's job.
Yeah, so the agent is not required to know these things. Now, look, if he does know these things, good, more power to you. Doesn't say you're not supposed to know. In practice, I would say that if I walked into a seller's house and started pointing out all the things wrong with it, that is not going to start a good negotiation by any means because you're making the person wrong. You're making them feel like their property is less. It's not this. And I know you're representing the buyer, but that doesn't help, right? Fact of the matter is, when it comes to selling properties, it's the law of supply and demand. Put a property on market, the number of offers that come in, you usually take the best one of the bunch by not only price but terms, and the seller picks what works for them. So when a buyer's agent walks in and starts saying, well, I'm going to have to do this, I'm going to have to change that, it's going to need this much money for work and that much money for that, if there's multiple offers on the table, the seller doesn't care. And that's usually, at least in the market that we're living in now, there's multiple offers on the table. So I just don't like to start any negotiation by putting things down. If it comes up later, and like, here's my offer, and they want to know why the offer is what it is, like, I don't understand, like, that property's worth more, then, yeah, by all means, let them know. But I wouldn't be walking through properties just, like, putting everything down and trying to make, that's not going to make anybody want to do a deal with you. So, let's go to 2-4. Realtors shall not be parties to the naming of false consideration in any document unless it be the naming of an obviously nominal consideration. So this standard of practice 2-4 has come up a bunch of times whenever we do this training because there's a few words in there that we're not all using on a regular basis. But to summarize this, you're not allowed to be a party to any sort of false information in a document. So let's say you sign a listing agreement and what's a false consideration? A false consideration is like an offer that you just can't do, right? So like something like what's an offer you just can't do? You're promising to like fix something that you don't have the funds to, the seller doesn't have the funds to fix it or something like that. Like a short sale would be a perfect example. You got a short sale you're putting on market, seller's just trying to walk away from foreclosure, and we're going to advertise on the listing that we're offering this consideration. Like we're offering to put in new appliances for the person who takes the property. But the seller can't do that. Well, you're not allowed to be a party to this. You're not allowed to even be involved in the transaction. Realtors should not be a party to namings of false things that are going to be in documents. So in that scenario, you'd have to tell the seller, look, if you can't really do this, we can't say that, or I can't list the property. It's really simple. Any questions about that?
Pretty straightforward.
Yeah. A lot of people don't realize that they have to walk away from the listing. That's usually one of the biggest feedbacks we get. Is like, oh, what do you mean I can't take the listing? I'll just tell him not to advertise it. We're like, right, we can tell him not to advertise it, but if they insist that you do so, you can't take the listing. Right? You tell them, like, we're not going to make promises we can't deliver, but they insist that you do so, you have to walk away. 2-5, factors defined as non-material by law or regulation or which are expressly referenced in law or regulation as not being subject to disclosure are considered non-pertinent for the purpose of Article 2. Oh man, that's a mouthful. I don't even remember that one, to be honest with you. Let's just move on. I can't remember that one. No Article 3. Way. It's a tough one, I'm not going to lie. If you need this clarified, ask an attorney. I'm sure they'll help you. I just don't remember. Article 3. Realtors shall cooperate with other brokers except when consideration is not in the client's best interest. The obligation to cooperate does not include the obligation to share commissions, fees, or otherwise compensate another broker. So a lot of people don't know that you're not required by the Code of Ethics to compensate the other broker. Usually,
Best for the client.
what's that?
Whatever is best for the client. I've had examples where, the seller took a higher offer from a direct buyer. It turned out that after what they actually net more working with that buyer directly than they did with the other agent.
Sure. Well, if the agent reduced the commission because the buyer came without a realtor, that makes sense. Right? There's no obligation in Article 3 where it says that realtors have to pay commissions to each other. Usually, it's the local real estate boards that enact that. So, for example, here in Long Island, we have the One Key MLS. It covers most of New York City and Bronx and Westchester County. It's all like a huge MLS. It's one of the biggest ones in the country. And it encompasses so much of an area. They have rules in place that say that we are required to offer some sort of compensation on every listing, even if it's $1. So every now and then you'll see a listing on market and it says $1 as compensation. It's very rare, but it does happen. And if that's the case, then they're still in compliance. So there's nothing in here that says you have to share your commissions. It is a standard. It is done. The commission sharing is an industry standard created by the MLSs and local real estate boards. It's not held by the code. So 3-1, realtors acting as exclusive agents or brokers of sellers or landlords establish the terms and conditions of offers to cooperate. Unless expressly indicated in offers to cooperate, cooperating brokers may not assume that the offer of compensation includes that the offers of cooperation includes an offer of compensation. So it says when you start the relationship with the seller or landlord, you establish the terms and conditions of how you're going to cooperate, of offers to cooperate with other brokers. Unless it's indicated in an offer to cooperate, unless there's something in writing that says specifically, like I'll give you an example, on an REO listing, they might include something like an attachment that says commissions are subject to change because the banks might change it at any point. Like that's expressly indicated that cooperation and compensation might be changing. What it's saying here is, unless expressly indicated in offers to cooperate, cooperating brokers may not assume that offers of cooperation includes an offer of compensation. So just because they're cooperating and letting you see the listing and communicating and presenting your offers and going back and forth and being a good agent to you, it does not assume that they're required to compensate you. Terms of compensation, if any, shall be ascertained by cooperating broker before beginning efforts to accept the offers of cooperation. So what it's telling you is, if you are going to go to another broker and you want to show their listing, and you want to cooperate, or maybe you want to present an offer, right? You want to go. Usually, if you present an offer, that's probably when I would do it. You need to establish your terms of compensation at that time before you start getting cooperation, because it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be compensated. Right? Now, just because it says that you're not guaranteed to be compensated doesn't mean that other agent won't do business with you. They'll probably still co-broke. But you need to establish that. Did you know that, Aaron?
I did not know that, and I'm learning something new every single day.
I know a lot of people don't know that. This is I'm telling you, a lot of people don't take the time to go through this line by line. But when you do, oh my God, you become sharp. No agent messes with you. You want to take 3-2?
3-2, absolutely. Any change in compensation offered by cooperative services must be communicated to the other realtor prior to the time that realtor submits an offer to purchase/lease the property. After a realtor has submitted an offer to purchase or lease the property, the listing broker may not attempt to unilaterally modify the offered compensation with respect to that cooperative transaction.
So let me give you a little breakdown. So the first part of the paragraph says any changes to compensation that are offered have to be done prior to the submitting of the offer. All right? So let's say the seller is like, look, you could lower the price, but I want you to lower the commission 0.5%, whatever. And fine. If it's not lowering the price for whatever reason makes it easier for you to sell and you agree, whatever your terms are, you agreed. You need to get it in writing. have it signed, have it available, because the local board might audit you and ask you for proof of that. And then you need to make it known prior to offers being made. So like if someone presents you an offer and you haven't changed it on the listing yet, you might have an issue. So you have to make it known prior to offers coming in. Then the second part says, after a realtor has submitted an offer to purchase or lease the property, so an offer comes in, the listing broker may not attempt to unilaterally modify. So, unilaterally. Unilaterally means used to indicate that something is done by only one person, group, or country involved in a situation. So, basically, the listing agent can't decide on their own that they're going to change the compensation offered to the buyer's agent. It has to be agreed upon on both sides. And it's saying to you that after an offer has been submitted, you need to get agreement from the other side. The first part of the paragraph says... Huh? Say that?
I have a good example of that.
Go for it.
Yeah, so recently I had a closing, and I think the total commission was like $24,000. But the listing agent knew that with the offer that we presented, the seller was going to net the amount they wanted to net. So because of that reason, the commission offered to me and the seller's agent had to be lowered.
Okay.
So we had to get a form signed agreeing that both of us are going to reduce our commission. And I had to agree.
So if you did not agree, do you know what would have happened?
Tell me, please.
Well, were you under contract already?
I was under contract. No, I wasn't under contract yet. But he did remind me because I guess I forgot after we were under contract. Actually, he may have told me after the fact, but in order to get the deal done, I was just like, just do it.
Totally.
So it could have been that he should have told me before that.
Right, exactly. And I was about to say, you could have said no. In fact, you could have said no anyway because you can be like, sorry, this is the offer and the net is to the seller. Like another example of that is when we write in a commission into our offers and we like, look, I'm adding a point on, this is going to me. And the buyer's aware of what we're doing. You disclose it to your customer. They're okay. They agreed. They initialed on the offer, right? So in that circumstance, there's a net to the seller, and that could have been another example where you're like, no, this is still the offer as long as your buyer agrees. Your buyer has to agree to it. You can't make that decision.
I learned this from you a month ago, man.
What's that?
Only I learned this from you a month ago. I would have made an extra $2,000.
But your buyer's got to agree to everything. Go for it.
We got a question here from James. Are the listing agents obligated to disclose the offer number accepted from their sellers to the buyer agent client?
It didn't say that in Article 1. It said that they could disclose if there were offers as long as the seller gave them permission. The existence of offers, if they had permission from the seller, they could disclose that. It didn't say they had to disclose the amount, and I would assume that in this scenario, if the seller gives you permission, then you can do anything the seller gives you permission to do. The person you're accountable to is your principal, the person that hired you. So if that person that hired you gives you permission, then yeah, you can do it. You do what you say.
Awesome. James, hope that answers your question.
We are approaching the top of the hour. We only have about 7 minutes, and I think we're not going to be able to finish Article 3 in time. So hit me with questions. Do you guys have anything you want to go over? Anything you want to recap from, the first start of Article 3, Article 2, Article 1? Anything you want to get back to? Post them.
We gotta dial down how big of a stream delay you have. I think YouTube automatically puts 60 seconds on it or something like that.
No big deal. It'll pop up. Guys, if you like this content, you like the stuff we teach you, you like the real estate mastery / real estate bootcamp, whatever you want to call it, that we did the first time, you like this. These are all the things that we're offering in the Actually Agents coaching program. We're going to make you sharp, make you into a tight, strong realtor that no one messes with. Your offers get accepted. No realtor gets in your way. That's the purpose of having coaching, is to have better training, better sales, better accountability, goal setting. It's worth it. Reach out to myself or Aaron if you're curious to know more. It doesn't matter what state you're in. It doesn't matter where you are. Sales is sales. It's the business of people, right? If you know how to sell, then you know how to work people. And you can take these skills and apply it to any industry, anywhere. That's why some of the top salesmen who are realtors do well in other industry as well, and they only do real estate part-time. You have plenty of part-time people who make a killing. They do great. A lot of people sell like Enagic machines. I've seen those. If you don't know what that is, like the Kangen the water converting machine. I've seen realtors sell Isogenics. I've seen realtors sell a lot of stuff. Any questions pop up?
Thin wraps. Nope.
All right. Then let's just keep going to Article 3 until we hit that. We got the last 5 minutes. So, Standard Practice 3-3. Standard Practice 3-2 does not preclude the listing agent and cooperating brokers from entering into an agreement to change cooperative compensation. So, it's basically letting you know that this whole thing describing about how you have to disclose changes to compensation, and get agreement about changes to compensation, it does not stop the listing broker from making changes with their client. If their client changes something, then it is what it is, right? 3-4. Realtors acting as listing brokers have an affirmative obligation to disclose the existence of dual or variable rate commission agreements. An example would be a listing where one amount of commission is payable if the listing broker's firm is procuring cause, and a different amount of commission is payable if the sale lease is resulted by another broker, right? So you are required, listing broker acting as affirmative obligation to disclose, you are required to disclose the existence of variable rate commissions. So if you tell your seller, I take 6%, but if I sell it on my own and no other realtor is involved, I'll take 5%. You are required to disclose that if another broker asks you. Okay? The listing broker shall, as soon as practical, disclose the existence of such arrangement to potential cooperating brokers, and shall, in response to inquiries from cooperating brokers, disclose the differential that would result in the cooperative transaction or sales lease that results through the efforts of the seller or landlord. So, the listing broker is required as soon as practical to disclose the existence of the agreement. So it's not, I correct myself, it's not even just when they ask. You're required to disclose it. Like if someone gives you an offer, that's probably a practical time to let them know, hey, by the way, if they take your offer, they have to pay a little extra commission. I reduced my commission by 1 point if they take one of my own offers. Right? And it's telling you here that it's required. If cooperating broker is buyer/tenant representative, the buyer-tenant representative must disclose such information to their client before the client makes an offer to purchase or lease. So if the buyer's agent finds out that, hey, this is the agreement the listing agent made with the seller, the buyer's agent is now required to disclose to their customer, this is the agreement that was made with the seller. I know I just blew a bunch of people's minds right there. Nothing? Aaron, no examples? You ever run into that? You ever get anyone telling you?
I haven't. I actually haven't. I mean, I know people that try. Yeah, well, I have an example that I think happened, but I can't confirm it. But I've been trying to show this property for the longest time. I've been calling and calling and calling. Only been on the market a day. Every time I call, they don't answer. But I suspect that they did accept an offer from a direct buyer, and they just will not entertain any other agents. I call the admin, and they say she'll get back to me, and then finally she says, oh, they accepted an offer. To me, that sounds a little fishy. Seems to me that they just went with a direct buyer.
Maybe. I don't know how to find out,
sure.
But
I'm not sure.
if you ever run into a scenario where you're offering to reduce your commission if the buyer's your own, and you did that, it happens sometimes. There's nothing wrong with that. Like sometimes to get the listing, I'd rather make a deal than no deal, right? So if you make that agreement, you have to disclose that. It gives the buyer's agent a chance and the buyer a chance to make an offer, considering the fact that the offer has to be a little higher so that the seller nets more. You don't want to run into a scenario where you reduce your commission, but let's say by 1 point, and then the listing closes and the buyer's like, but I offered more than that. And now all of a sudden a whole can of worms is being offered. I don't know if my offer was presented. I don't know if this actually happened, blah, 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 blah. And lawyers are getting hired and this, and that. all that could have been avoided if it was just disclosed. Well, there was a better net to the seller, right? So that's a scenario where it could pop up. Local real estate boards see this more often than buyers actually try to pursue anything. But you don't want to end up in a local real estate board either, where another agent was like, I know my offer was higher than that. Why did it not get accepted? Right? So it's just about being transparent. Guys, rule of thumb with the entire code here, just to summarize stuff, okay? The more transparent you are, the better off you're going to be. You're going to have more cooperation not only from your clients and customers, the sellers and everything, but from other realtors. The more transparent you are, the better, and you're just going to have an easier career. So we're going to stop here at 3-4 because this is an hour. I promise you this class will only be about an hour. If you guys like this, give me some feedback. Put it in the Discord. Go into the event chat. Let everyone know that you like this. Tag someone that you think would be valuable to learn this information. Post it on Instagram. Tell people to join the Discord if they need to learn this information. Help us get out there and promote it if you like it. If it gets good feedback, we'll keep going. We'll keep doing the other articles. So I appreciate everyone coming. Anyone want to drop anything before we go?
I just want to say, man, it threads into your overall business strategy where if you're open and transparent and you educate people and everyone's on the same page, it takes a lot of the ambiguity and the fear off of the table and just makes your job as an agent all the better,
100%.
right?
Yeah.
So, and thank you for, presenting this as the first Code of Ethics class that didn't make me fall asleep. And actually, we got one last question here. Are we able to disclose the type of offer seller would accept if an agent asked?
If you have permission from your seller. Everything is about transparency, getting permission, and all permissions need to be in writing. Even though it might not say it specifically, I think it says it in there, but just a good practice for yourself. Get everything in writing. If it's in writing, you are protected. If things are just done verbally, you're not in a safe position when doing such things. So obviously get everything in writing. Simple stuff, dude. Like I literally hand them a piece of paper. Hey, just write on here today's date. I have permission to disclose blah, 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 blah. Sign. That's it. Take that, I scan it, put it on my computer. Sometimes I put it as an attachment on top of the listing. Done. You don't even have to worry about it anymore. Simple. You don't need a special document. You don't need a letterhead. You don't need all that. Just get it done.